Welcome, everybody, to the House Committee on General Housing. Today is Friday, all day, the 28th of February, the last day of February. What we're doing today is now until lunch, the committee is just going to discuss, it's kind of open discussion of the bills that are on our wall, and there are quite a few bills on our wall. And then what we're going to have to do early the week when we're back, we're going to have to decide an order of hearing, because we're not going to be able to hear many of these bills. Unfortunately, the bills that we don't hear, unless they become attached to a Senate bill, it doesn't mean we can't hear them. It just means we can't hear them this year. In this session, we would hear them next session, because they stay on the wall. They don't go away. It's a 2-year biennium. The year at the end of the biennium is different. When basically anything that we don't get to just gets thrown away, and you have to start all over again. But this is a 2-year biennium. So these bills that we don't hear and pass out of committee stay on the wall until next year. So what we're going to do is go, yeah.
And if I may, I was saying earlier that for me, I have a couple of bills that I've been paying attention to with the companions in the Senate, and I know that those have moved, so I will not be prioritizing them for us in my comments, because I've noticed that they're in a Senate moving vessel already and will be coming. So
and Senate bills, when they come over, are then assigned to committees as well. So a Senate bill, for example, we passed out H57 on survivor benefits. There is a Senate bill that already came out on survivor benefits and got assigned to our committee and on our wall. So we have some Senate bills on our wall, and we'll have more as they dribble and drabble out of the Senate. Yes.
I also have a comment, which is simply that given the short time frame, and given the process, I think we should decide whether we're going to prioritize by importance or by the amount of time it takes to pass each bill, because some of them will be, we just can't, if we devote 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we might be able to get testimony for it, but to the exclusion of everything else versus things that we could do
Right.
more of.
What I've actually been,
Fiscal year.
yeah, what I've been actually telling people is, I'm almost thinking, it's not just how controversial they are, it's how many witnesses would it take?
Exactly.
And if we have something that would take 10 witnesses.
That's exactly right.
We know that that's going to be very different than a bill that it's just. Yeah, I agree that it's a mixture of that. So what I think we're going to do, I'm going to start down this list and just ask people to talk about your thoughts. These are bills. I'm going to start with the bills that have been introduced here in the committee. And some of them had a walkthrough, some of them didn't. But so H33 is an act relating to expanding employee access to unpaid leave. It's a labor bill. Thoughts?
Pretty neutral myself.
Anybody have strong feelings about this bill? The fact that you don't doesn't mean you wouldn't hear it. I just need.
And I haven't talked to the committee about this yet, but I do have a draft request for a short form of a variation of this bill that is tailored more to some of the comments that the chamber and others, so it just has a few tweaks and leaves out some of the things that were more contentious when we had the discussion.
So that bill is a short form.
Yes.
How does a short form become a long form? In committee?
Yeah, we have to decide to take it off the wall or not.
Right.
Or we can attach it to another bill.
Or we could take up two bills, but we'd have to mark it up right here, right? And then ask Lex council to draft it. Okay. So that bill, that the original bill is Troy's bill. Remember, it was introduced. H 38 is an act relating to adding new positions to the Human Rights Commission. That bill is in our committee bill. And it was a recommendation it was in our letter.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's
It's
not,
not in the committee bill,
it's not in our committee bill.
I don't think it's.
but it's in our
It's in
letter.
our
letter
It's in our
to the
letter.
I think it may be in the draft that is coming out. We'll see. It just says,
But it doesn't belong in housing, right?
Yeah,
They're on the.
oh, no, that's right. No, it's not. You're right. I apologize.
It's in our budgeting letter.
Yeah, it's in our budgeting letter as one of two things not related to housing.
I have a,
And in fact, I should tell you, I'm not even sure. It's an interesting question. I'm not sure, even if we didn't take it off the wall, it's a budgetary matter. It goes to approach, it's up to approach to decide. Yes,
I would like to, there's a H 429, which is on the back page,
yeah,
just got assigned to us, is a bill that should be pretty easy to pass through here. It just expands, has to do with the House Discrimination Prevention Panel. And it just expands the Human Rights Commission's jurisdiction for when our House panels, when it would be inappropriate for our House panels to take up a matter. For example, if there was a statewide office. Sorry, for example, if there was a statewide office holder against whom there was a claim made, it's not really appropriate. It's not really appropriate for a House panel to have that under their jurisdiction instead of having an outside. So anyway, all of that to say, I wondered whether H 429 could be combined with H 38.
okay, let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'll make that note.
Page 48 was the bill that was introduced that,
429.
429
yeah, and we'll see. Or we could deal with it alone. Okay, then H 42, we heard. Or no, we didn't hear
Yeah,
it.
I thought that was,
the
former
House-
Chair Stevens'
Yeah, it was the
bill.
Housing Board of Appeals. We
Right.
didn't hear it. It was,
Well, we
Presented.
talked about
He
it.
gave an
We talked-
introduction.
yeah, we talked about it. What happened is I asked him a lot of questions. Actually, it was Ellen. So it was presented by, it was a walkthrough. It got the walkthrough.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'll just say my preliminary, I mean, all of these are preliminary, but my preliminary feeling about that is that's exactly the kind of thing that we have to wait until we get the report of the Land Use Review Board, which we're trying to get in November.
Yeah, so I would.
I agree.
Mix that one for now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it should go up the wall now.
Well,
Okay,
we can't rip them off.
I mean, I don't think,
Pull the torch.
H 57 is an act, that's
done.
done, it's pulled out. That's done. H 60, an act relating to prohibiting discrimination based on immunization status, that's marked. Bill, thoughts?
I'm mildly positive on it, but I also realize that's probably not going.
And would I go to healthcare and maybe do or no?
No, we do discrimination.
Oh, I see. Oh, it's discrimination, even though it's
Yeah.
a medical thing. Okay,
I mean, it'd be,
so I'll put a note of
One mildly positive.
mild positive
I
for
guess I'd have
JP.
to, I haven't read it yet, so I don't have a strong opinion, but I'm probably mildly negative. It comes from my feeling that, we care a lot about individual rights. I don't want to argue, but just,
Oh,
we care a lot about individual rights and, tend to emphasize that people can do what they want or want to emphasize people can do what they want. I just think there's certain areas where we're not individuals. We're a community and there's herd immunity and you need a certain amount for herd immunity. And if you lose herd immunity because individuals say, oh, I don't want to do it, then everybody's screwed. So, yeah, I really believe in the right of people to do what they want, but I also believe in the right of my being able to send my kid to school and not get some terrible disease. So I'm probably mildly negative, but
All right, I made a note of both of those things,
Okay.
mildly positive, mildly negative.
And the two of us were neutral.
Right,
yeah, amazing. Okay, all right. The next one is page 63 is an act relating to legislative leave. Remember, that's the one that Sophie wrote us a letter about in response to questions. And right,
I don't remember.
and basically, you can review the letter, but we asked her a question when she did a walkthrough. And what we asked her was, is this treating legislators any better than anybody else? And the answer is, in some ways, no, but in other ways, yes. And in other words, my memory is that I kind of felt like, given all the urgent stuff that's up there, after her letter, I was kind of feeling like I'm mildly negative personally. Like she was saying, in a lot of ways, we're already protected. And in other ways, this would give us more protection than other people. And you should look at her better.
I will.
Yeah, do
I can't remember what this bill was about besides its title, but
I think
Yeah.
is Monique the lead
we?
sponsor?
Is that letter in all of our documents somewhere?
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it should be.
no,
No,
it's not on the web.
On the website, if
Yeah.
you go to the committee page.
Yeah.
And then you go to bills in and out of committee,
Yeah,
they're all hyperlinked there.
yeah. The bill is the,
Yeah.
is the letter,
Oh, pardon?
letter.
Oh, the letter.
No, the
No,
letter
no,
was
it's not.
I don't
confidential.
think I have the letter.
That's fine, okay.
Confidential, dude.
So we'll, I'll.
Just wait, I can.
I think-
Oh, yeah, you're right.
You know what? Could you put on a note that we need to send to the committee the letters from Sophie? I
Sure.
want to make sure everybody has them. They're
Yeah, I don't think I
confidential,
got it even.
They're
I don't think I did either.
Yeah, that's my
It may have
mistake.
just gone to
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll
Okay.
put that in our notes.
Just a thought on that one, there is at least one member out here who does not have a job anymore because of the time commitment involved.
Say that again?
At
And
least.
there's not a lot of people out here that have got to work
Some, yeah.
to be here, but yeah, some of us do. And to have that cut out, that's a tough one, I think, to have some working people in the mix of the conversation,
Mhm.
so.
oh, is it asking for paid leave to be?
No,
no.
just that you have a
You
job.
have a right to
I thought.
you have a right to-
I thought that was
already
It's a right to return to your job.
I thought that was already in place.
So did I.
It isn't.
Partly.
Oh, Ashley,
Ashley,
Can you hear us, Ashley? And can you talk?
You're cutting out, Ashley,
I
you're,
can't hear you.
Did you want to say
have-
something?
Yeah, that's not.
I
gonna-
did, I have, I'll just send a message to everyone. I have some background on this bill. That might be beneficial, but it's not paid leave, it's the covering of your medical.
oh, yes, okay.
Okay.
oh,
Right, so if someone has
Medical
a
benefits.
medical issue while they're serving,
No,
no?
no, medical benefits, or your
No.
employer has to keep your,
Yeah, keep paying your medical benefits.
While you're-
Oh, I see.
Which-
Okay,
which I don't know if
Right.
that's,
It would be nice if I feel it would be nice if we were able to take a sick day.
All right.
Right.
you can take as many sick days as you
Oh,
want.
I can't afford to.
What I'll do is, I think people have to read the letter.
all right,
so would you
so,
like me to send it then?
oh,
you get
thank
it?
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just to the committee.
All
Yeah.
right, I'm taking that off my list. So we're gonna get the letter and review. Got
Yeah,
it.
she sent us a letter about two bills. So Ashley, can you hear us, by the way?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. I just might be going in and out.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
Yeah, so I'm gonna no on that one myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Just to continue employers.
Benefit, yeah, this is not
Yeah.
the appointment.
yeah, wait, just everybody, I suggest you read the confidential email from our council, okay?
We just got
Then,
it.
yeah, and then H
106.
106. That also was introduced. What that's about, if you remember, is that FEMA maps are not available everywhere and they're not clear.
Mhm.
And it's hard, this is not an obligation on the Realtor. The Realtor has other obligations to reveal. This is an obligation on the seller.
Private sellers.
Yeah, private sellers, and some of the sellers, I can't find the maps. And their maps are, in some cases, are not to be found. So they propose taking that away.
Um,
And just instead,
I was,
saying, they have to say, has it ever been flooded? Do they have flood insurance?
and is that one that?
Yeah.
He wants?
Yeah,
Peter Tucker.
yeah, and also, Tangeman, who was on the.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he wants it too.
I mean, how long would that could take? Yeah, I'm neutral.
Yeah, that might be, I'm slightly positive. I can see that
I
that's a
would
problem.
support, I would support it, but
Yeah,
I
it
don't
might
know
be
if
quick.
it's a
Yeah,
priority.
Yeah, all right, it might be quick.
Joe,
Well, I
did
think
you-
here. Did you have,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I still like the idea that we did that.
Mhm.
I think it's still a good thing, and if we could figure out a way to keep it when it works and not have it be a requirement where it doesn't.
One of the thoughts I had, because I did raise, is there an in-between here? Because with climate, just the rear view mirror planning isn't working because it keeps changing. In other words, the fact that something wasn't flooded before doesn't mean it isn't likely to be
Right.
flooded in the future. So I was wondering whether there should be a box that you check. It's, it's on the flood map, it isn't on the flood map, or I don't know. Because flood map is unavailable or I can't get it. In which case, checking that box would at least like alert, you would think, a buyer
To go look for
to
it.
take a look. So we talked about that. It was just a conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, trying to find middle ground and
Because I think it's the notion of that, of having to have that at least on the radar of the purchaser, that on a FEMA map, or I don't know if it is, yeah.
So I
then
put more discussion,
Yeah.
positives.
Yeah. mild positive, yeah, okay. Then H 169, I'm skipping just because I'm just finishing up. What did we have introduced? This is an act relating to amending prohibitions against discrimination in public accommodations and housing. And our very own Leonora Dodge is the proponent of this and has been. We had a walkthrough.
Yep, and there's been a lot of, background work done on trying to gather testimony and to clarify, what the effects of the change would be and be able to bring in information about other states. So it could be, depending on how much testimony people want or whether you can trust, like I've done bills that, like we just did, I don't want a process where we don't take testimony, but I want a process where we don't have to take every single affected, entity's testimony and just be able to have people in the room that say, we give the green light, yeah, we're happy with the language.
To refresh your memories, this is the one that was looking at immigration status and hoping that to create a situation where you couldn't have either landlords or public accommodations discriminating
Right.
against people on immigration status. And the sort of, one of the ways of doing that, of implementing that idea, was to say that you just can't require people, that if people don't want to give a social security number, you have to accept some other form of government ID. And the questions that were raised that Leonora, as I understand it, are working on is, okay, can landlords get the information they need relatively easily with, under that provision? And we don't have to substantively decide that, but that, I'm just kind of reprising what was sort of out there.
And I haven't been looking at what they're doing downstairs. Is there any things that they might be sending that then we could take more? No.
I mean, I think they're gonna run out of time. They tried to do this last year and I think that they're probably trusting that we're working. We're hopefully we can bring it to them.
But is there anything they're sending over to us that maybe if we had time for more testimony, could get attached to?
Not that I know of.
Yes,
So property management does background checks before somebody
right.
can purchase a home, and I ask them, can you get a background check without a social security number? And they said, yes, it may not be as accurate, but you definitely can.
Well, this is the kind of thing, if we heard it, we'd have to hear that. I mean, I think that issue has to be resolved
Right.
reasonably, or there's
Yeah.
gonna be a lot of opposition to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
So, just to put a final little bow on it, I share all of those concerns and I've heard all of those concerns and, you know, we get the final say in how,
Right.
you know, how we want to protect the rights of people, that are looking for housing and those that are renting out, you know, so.
I mean, I'm definitely positive on this if we can resolve
Clearly
these
I am
issues.
too. I think that, you know,
I'm
it's a
concerned about
workforce
this.
issue.
I don't want to create a situation
So it's like, I
where,
couldn't tell.
right, I just don't want to create a situation where landlords can't do what they have to do.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
So if we take it up, we ask
Have
this
to deal with that,
question.
yeah, we
So
got
I'm
it.
gonna put interest and we'll keep it in the loop of the discussions.
Okay, so then we have 173 and
I
174.
think you're kind of skipping over.
No, I am, I'm
He's
just
skipping
focusing
to-
on
Oh,
the bills that we've already introduced, and then I'll go
Oh.
back, okay?
got it.
Okay. 173, 174,
All right,
Are-
Troy's.
both, those bills, they're both Connor cases. They're both labor bills.
So I have, oh, sorry.
173 is the right to strike for employees of higher education. And they were all here yesterday. AFT feels very strongly about it. I think we'd have to have AFT and we'd have to have higher education people in to do that.
I am very supportive of the AFT's requests, and have been. Doesn't cost money, but it is a discussion. I don't know if we'll continue to have some smaller, like different labor bills we could pull together, but I'll say that I am supportive of the request about the being able to have higher ed involved, included in the people that are able to.
Given that all the other similar situated people have a right to strike,
Right.
I'm supportive of my own personal problem, which I have to deal with. I'll go to Betsy Ann, who won't let me off the hook. Is I'm on the board of the Vermont State
Right.
Colleges.
Oh, yeah,
So I
that's not
have
good.
conflicting,
Conflict of interest.
I don't
Not
think it
really,
is,
not making any money
unfortunately.
from it,
I'm not
this.
making any money. I just have literally conflicting fiduciary duties. I don't know, I'll probably just end up having to vote and disclosing my interest if we do that. Then another bill, again by Connor, is the Vermont Labor Relations Board. And in some ways, this is more far reaching. This bill
Right.
would replace, right now, remember there are all these different labor bills, acts, like 7 different acts that deal with labor. The major one says that employees' grievances have to be resolved by the Vermont Labor Relations Board. There's a real concern that that process is too long. This bill would take that power away from them and put it in the hands of private arbitrators. People who oppose that argue, I'm just summarizing for you guys, argue that the advantage of the Labor Relations Board is there's a whole case law history so that people know kind of what the standards are. And that with arbitrators, you never know, and most of them are out of state and don't understand Vermont. That's quick and dirty. Whether there's a middle ground of giving people the option, if the parties agree, is a matter that I don't know. Anyway, that's what it's about. I have a feeling that bill would require a good bit of testimony. Because not only would we have the unions, NLRB, but we'd probably end up with some labor lawyers on both sides talking about it. I don't know, 4, 5, I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably 5 or 6.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So are we positive on that one, or are we? Give them a,
Question mark for me. Yes, I'm neutral. I personally am not one way or the other.
anyone else?
How about you?
I feel like I don't know enough about the labor stuff,
Okay,
but.
Yeah, I mean, I
as you
think it could be
described.
helpful if people feel positive about some of the labor bills, that maybe we can think about how we can string some together and we wouldn't double up with, or we could double up with testimony because there's some similar people.
Mhm.
So I think,
Does this
This
ever
session,
do
work
it?
session is the question.
Yeah, that sounds
I don't
like
know.
something we won't be able to get done.
Yeah,
before
I mean-
crossover.
I think some background on it for me, we've done multiple, just the conversations and different bills that have come through on pulling stuff away from the Labor Relations Board, going a different route. So if we were gonna take it up, I'd probably be looking into, is this a process thing, or is this like, don't like the decisions we've gotten from the Labor Relations Board?
too. I
like-
like the other.
Look at number of cases, which way they went, and then number of cases with arbitrators, see which way. And just see if we seem to get better results with this route versus this route, which isn't really.
And length of time and outcome.
right.
Yeah, no, I'm saying if they're pretty even, then you can look at other stuff, but if it's like a scale like this, and you're basically just like, I don't like the Labor Relations Board's decisions, so there's gonna be.
I know Sophie had some comments on it, but that's different than.
So did we say we were a yes on the 173, the previous one? Just.
I think that's.
I think that could be done quickly.
Yeah.
But there's some positive feelings about it, and I'm just saying I'm a little negative on 174, mostly
okay.
because I think it's so far reaching, but I don't know, I'm willing to open.
Keep a tab so we can see how many, like, I like the connecting the dots.
Yeah, so I wrote that down, but yeah, I
Yeah.
think, because the top one is a easier lift.
Yeah,
But we could kind of see how things play out and if we have similar witnesses, but I am very supportive of AFT's bill.
Can I just ask, quick? Does the committee do any kind of like labor omnibus kind of labor bill?
We haven't, well, I don't know, we could.
I was gonna say, can we?
We have in the past, that is a thing that happens.
Ashley, you have a question?
Not necessarily a
comment.
question, it's a comment. So I think we need to also be aware that if I'm understanding what's coming to us from the Senate, they have a omnibus labor bill that I believe will be committed to us once it comes over. And I think a lot of the things that are on our wall are already in that bill. I'm not 100% sure. I have an intern looking into it, but just wanted
Yeah.
to share that with the rest of the committee.
I don't know about all of them, but we still, to keep that in mind, and then we'd still need to have testimony on on such things like,
Yeah.
so. But yes, we can have an omnibus labor bill and we can attach, or if the Senate has things we like in it, we can take testimony on those things and
We
approve or
could work out the
disapprove.
bill. if we-
Totally.
Okay, that's a good information to know. At this point, the only bill left that we have actually introduced is similar H201, which is Barbara Rachelson. It's an act prohibiting discrimination on an individual's criminal history. It's very drafted somewhat similarly to Leonora's bill, but instead of dealing with immigration status, it deals with criminal history.
Right.
And it does have a provision saying, essentially, there's a savings provision that says if the history relates, you can inquire if the history relates to the subject matter of the employment. So for example, I think you could say, well, we're not going to interview people who have discrimination of a history of sexual harassment of children for a teacher. You know, that in other words, there's an exception provision in that, but I don't know this area, so I don't have an opinion. Anybody else?
Bit mildly negative.
Okay. All right, you have a mild
Well, it
negative.
just seems like a big lift.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back up to the top. I'm going back up to the top now. Those are all the ones that we used to have up. Wall. So H127 was not introduced, so I'm just going back up. This is an act relating to, I thought it was. No, we didn't have a walkthrough, or it wasn't introduced. It's an act that deals with deed restrictions for solar, and in other words, it used to be a big deal that condos and other properties had deed restrictions that, you know, they were built just in such a way, and you couldn't mess with the roof, and you couldn't mess with this or mess with that, and it effectively prevented solar. And I just don't know whether that's still a big deal in Vermont or not.
Isn't it your bill on?
It was my bill. And I think I just did it as a little short form. I don't even
It
remember
is your
now.
bill.
Yeah, and it came out of directly conversations with constituents when I was door knocking. People moved into our neighborhood and could have taken advantage, you know, upon moving in to get some rebates and be able to put solar. And our covenant
Said no.
said you can't. When they asked our HOA, they were like, is that the case that our covenant prohibits? And the answer they got was, yes, that's right, the covenant prohibits. They didn't get any further information that says, but the state trumps the covenant, so you can go for it. And so it was kind of so it strikes me that it leaves, it would just help to try to clarify, but I feel like your bill, about the,
Resource.
having a resource center, I don't know whether we, you know, there's.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think about with all these HOA things, like who would testify, right? Like I mean, would you have someone from an HOA president from some town that, you know, come in and say, we don't want that because it could, like, I'm just trying to think that through, like, we would have to have both sides presented, and how can you represent people across the state in their opposition to adding those? I know where I live, we're not even allowed to have anything in the front of the house. And, you know, so if someone has an AC unit, we can't put it in our front, has to be in the back. And, you know, so I just don't know. That's what I'm trying to suss out with the HOA, because I have one too. Like, who would be able to kind of talk about that, and how would we pick who would be the opposition?
To me, it's not I know it's my bill, but it's not a massive priority for me, given everything else that we're talking about. I just felt like, well, you know, maybe to make sure that new developments that may have HOAs, you know, baked into the new housing efforts in our densely populated areas, like it's likely that they will be writing up their covenant language, and wouldn't it be handy if like maybe the RPCs came out with a model of like the language, but maybe that doesn't take legislation, you know?
We could get I'm just saying, I think we could get Efficiency Vermont or somebody like that to tell us whether this was. We can find somebody, it might take a little work, who knows whether this is a prevalent problem. In other states, I know that for a while, it was a big deal because, but I was sort of under the impression that mostly it's gone, but I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder whether we could look at deed restrictions in general. And I am really strictly saying this from my own personal standpoint. But we moved into our house without realizing that there was a covenant on that covered the houses on our end of the street. And we've looked through all of the archives and can't find it. And somehow that's legal in the state of Vermont, that we should have a covenant, not have record of it, have to live under it, and
Yeah, that was what you were describing too, Emily, right? About the, like, when there's some people make up a new covenant, but they're still under the old one, but the people that signed the old one aren't
Right.
around to vote that they're getting rid of the old covenant, and it's just kind of this weird.
Yeah,
rigmarole.
we didn't even know there was one until after we had
In a lot of
already, we
states,
wouldn't
you
have moved there.
disclosure requirements.
Yeah.
If you don't disclose, then it's not.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something that in general we can look at next session.
Well,
Right.
that's an interesting whether we want to take up the whole HOA thing next time.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not up yet, but I'll give my spiel when we get to my bill.
Okay, so moving right along, that was 127. 149 is an act relating to equal pay protections. That's Tom's bill. I don't even know what that's about.
Equal pay protections.
Thank you.
And
I'm going to tell you, it is to extend equal pay to individuals and protected classes. In other words, it says right now for any employer, employment agency, labor, seeking employees, it's prohibited to discriminate between employees on the basis of sex, race, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, color, religion, ancestry, place of birth, age, or criminal victim status. That's what it does. And it applies that to various things. Thoughts?
I mean, the point of the list is getting to be excessive. I mean,
Well-
at some point you can just stop it at that it's illegal to discriminate.
Is that a mild no?
It's,
I think we would have to take a lot of testimony on it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's one of those bills, whenever there's a bill
I
with
did.
bad actors.
Right, right. Come up.
So we're now at what, 234,
169.
149, 172.
That's me.
Oh, shoot.
All right, so the background on this bill, again, this is mostly a constituent bill, myself and Representative Torrey. Over the years I've been here, I represent South Burlington. We have a tremendous amount of HOAs. Over the last few years, I've talked to our former chair about kind of discussing some HOA stuff, but he said that would be a very big lift and to let things be. But what I noticed in my time as a representative and just someone who's lived in an HOA since 2007, there are a lot of questions that constituents all over the state have about HOA. So this was kind of, first I was like oversight, there's no place to report if there's an HOA. So I get people like, how can they do that to me? Like things like that. But then I was like, no. So then I talked to some advocates and they thought, what about a resource center? where it's kind of a place. So first I had it tasked to be with DHCD and they said it would be too much work for them because they're over capacity. So I said, okay. So I talked to the Secretary of State's office. They have kind of like a better, I don't remember the name of their, basically this would be a web page that the agency of government would set up. Doesn't cost any money, just work for them. But it would be a place in state government where people all over the state could go to learn more about HOAs, what they do, how you can advocate so that board members, many who are new to it or other things, know what they can and can't do, what the state, what an HOA is, just more information. It doesn't even necessarily need to be legislation. I put this in as mostly a constituent bill because I get more emails about questions about HOA than I can count. Another part of the bill that could possibly happen is a directive to where they can not report, but explain if there's an issue. So obviously years ago, we had the lawsuit about not being able to dry your clothes on lines. I have many in my community that get upset. They can't put a kiddie pool out because it's in the common area. So there are just a lot of questions around HOA. And I just thought this would be a place that constituents and legislators could direct our constituents if they have questions and also keep track of some of the issues that people are having. So again, it's not a priority. No one's going to die. It's not like I'm screaming for this, but that's kind of why I put it in. And there are many other legislators, after I discussed it with them, were like, oh, that could be helpful. So that's kind of the background. It's not an emergency, but that's where it's at. Yeah, that's a question.
With an HOA, do you have bylaws and community rules?
Yeah,
So
and in addition, you have covenants that are recorded.
Okay, so you're looking for a centralized resource center. So what would be the what did you just call it?
Website?
Yeah, what?
She said website. No, the
The covenant.
Covenants.
covenant,
Yeah.
the covenants.
The covenants, you know, I don't know anything about the regulation of HOAs. In a lot of states, HOAs have to have, there's an agency that overlooks what they do and their laws that say.
That's what I'm looking for.
And
You don't. do
there's,
that.
we are podunk,
Okay,
but I don't know how podunk. I'm not familiar
Well,
with it,
right,
but
so
we
that
don't.
would explain it.
And we, you know,
Center.
they have requirements that when you move into an HOA, before you buy, you have to give me an information packet that has, I've looked at these packets. That has in it
Yeah.
all of the meetings, the minutes for the last year of meetings, the prior budgets,
Yeah.
a copy of any covenants, CCNR's covenants, codes and restrictions that have been recorded, all of that. Yeah, I mean.
so that's
consumer protection.
basically what you're, Emily, that's what you're wanting, not the
Yeah.
bylaws from, because that's gonna be different
Oh,
for
no,
every
no.
age. But when you mention about clotheslines and stuff like that, that's not covenant, that's bylaw or community rules.
Right.
So-
And yeah, so it's just a place to go and then.
There's nothing.
There's nothing. And so I have a lot of seniors who are the board chairs and they ask me questions as a legislator and I'm like, I help, but only because I have knowledge from experience, but there's nothing for people in Vermont, a place, and other states have, I've done the research, other states do have things like this, whether it's a private, so in the bill, again, none of the bills I introduced have money. But there is a directive in the bill that if they want to subcontract this work out to a nonprofit or something like that. So for this, we would have to have the Secretary of State come in and talk about their capacity. Again, like I tried to think about where this could go in our state government, whether it's Attorney General, DHCD, other things. And we can decide to ask DHCD if they would be comfortable. The initial setup is the work, but after that, there's not work. So just setting up the page of HOA information is the work for whichever agency it's directed to.
I think we know what we need to know. I'm mildly positive, but I do tend to think it goes. I do really think maybe this is something we should take up a whole HOA.
I have been asking for that for a couple of years, but
Now we can't.
it was not positive with the former chair, but if folks feel like we could take some time on HOA law at some point, I think it would be helpful.
The time to do it, I think, is to pick one or two of us. In addition to yourself, get together in the summer
Sure.
and just put together go to Ledge Council and put together the bill.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So I was really just, again, no one's gonna die, but I was putting it there as a constituent, like resource, like that I did something for them right now because, but I do think at some point this committee should take time refreshing HOA law, and I know for many years that's kind of been avoided. So it's something I think is important. And as we continue to build our housing stock,
Yeah,
make
that's,
Exactly.
that's my concern.
so yeah, so let's, I'll
Especially
put
because
that
we're
note
building
that,
for people without as many, like, we're trying to house people that don't have the legal resources necessarily.
Exactly.
That's why it's important now and more relevant now.
I think that's a
it sounds like I sold a
positive.
future
Yeah, you did. Okay,
conversation.
but it's positive. Okay, then there's an Act 175.
I have no idea what all this stuff is that you guys are talking about.
HOA.
One, 170, why is 175?
Wonky.
Oh, it must be new. No, it's not on here. It's on this. An act relating to the right of adjunct faculty to receive unemployment insurance benefits. It's not on our website.
Oh, is that the one you moved to have transferred?
Oh, I transferred it out. Thank you. Wonderful. Go on.
Bye.
234, an act related to determining bargaining units for adjunct faculty. I think this sort of would be heard with the other.
Mhm.
242, an act relating short-term rentals. This bill, it's an interesting bill. Our bill, you've all heard what we heard. Our bill simply stopped at empowering local jurisdictions to tax some if they want to. That's it. This bill, in its current form, is much more regulatory on a statewide basis. What it does is it says, unless the town has its own regulation or adopts a regulation, the standard is no short-term rentals, I guess, in the future. I haven't read that. No short-term rentals unless it's in a house or a building that's owner occupied.
Yeah, I'm a strong negative on that
Strong negative.
myself.
I think that is a huge list.
That's by, which number is that? 240, 242 is,
David Durfee.
it's Larry, it's
Amy and Larry.
Amy and Larry.
Strong no. My feedback is very heavy left.
I think what we're addressing in CAMA to see if we can get actual data on this question, probably should come first. And that'll indicate whether or not we need to do any piece of this. I mean, there's a couple different pieces in it. The statewide registry is probably not, but that's one that will get pushed back.
I
Okay,
mean, is this some sort of compromise with some other development stuff? Like if we make sure that short-term rentals don't expand and don't become like the private equity short-term rental market, then we're okay. But because if it's that, then I'm like, great, that makes sense to me. But if we're gonna ban all short-term rentals,
Well,
even in
it
communities
doesn't
where
ban-
they make
it
sense.
narrows them if you don't, essentially what it would
It's
be. the way it's
Burlington's
written,
bill.
Yeah, the way it would work
Which doesn't
is,
work in the rest of the
if you're
state.
a town and you don't, whatever you want is not particular, whatever you want, you have to do. If you don't do anything, the default rule is no short-term rentals except owner occupied.
Owner occupied.
My understanding is it's just like what Burlington put in place, where you have to live on the premises.
Or it's not
Or,
considered.
and I just don't think that works for the entire state right now.
So Josh Hanford with VLCT said that towns overwhelmingly said that they want the ability to do it their
way.
And I support.
But
I think that's-
I said this to Larry, just so you know. And Larry said, I said, where's VLCT on this? Because That's what I remembered. He said they support it because it allows towns to do it. I'm not sure
I don't know.
I'm not sure, but at any rate, I hear everybody problematic. Okay,
Doing nothing allows the towns to do it, doesn't it?
yeah, yes, that's true. 253, an act relating to workforce housing zones. I'll tell you what that is.
That's Rebecca.
That's Rebecca Holton's bill. And the thing is, there's two pieces to the bill. One piece is all about the study which we have acted on. The study to look at offsite modular housing construction. And it simply repeats all the recommendations, and we said, okay, study, demanded it. The other, I don't think belongs in this committee. The other is, it belongs in Amy's committee. It sort of creates a new zone.
All right, I'm gonna put that.
And, you know, a new zone of workforce housing zones. And I can't even opine on the wisdom of it, you know, I just don't know enough about Act 250. I don't know if there's an appetite for yet another tier and another complexity, but I feel like at this point, if anybody wanted to really deal with that, or if there's I've told to Rebecca, and I guess I would repeat to her, if you really have an appetite to move this, I'll move it over to Amy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
256,
That's me.
but it's 256.
So I have two bills that are from the request of the Vermont State Employees Association. One you'll remember for folks from last year, which is having assistant attorney generals have the right to be able to bargain. It did not
Oh, yeah.
make it through, but so this is also, so the two folks that are left out still are assistant attorney generals, folks and judiciary employees. Again, if I was texting down in the Senate to see what's in their labor bill. I think that there's gonna be movement on those down there. So I'm gonna check in with them today, but I do believe that there will be movement on those, so I don't think those need to be our priority, and when we get to them, when we get their bill, we'll be able to reopen if we'd like.
I'm willing to wait till
Yeah.
that information comes in. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. 261 is establishing a 32-hour work week. My only problem, despite the fact that frankly, I prefer a 24-hour work week. How about 18 hours? No, seriously, I don't mean to demean the 32-hour movement. Is I just think we would have to take a
It's a
lot of
huge
testimony, that would be a huge lift, I assume.
It is, yeah, Monique introduced this last year as well. It is a movement across the country, I know, and there's federal push from Senator Sanders as well.
Yeah.
But I think it would require a lot.
I mean, I think, I just don't know if it would be a lot of work, and I can't believe it would just be to our committee. I think it would, Commerce, I think, Commerce and appropriation, no. But I don't know, it's such.
Just labor
such
law.
huge 56.
Yeah, it's labor.
We're labor.
It's also, I don't know if it would be commerce.
Yeah, Commerce, and
Who does
so
employment, yeah, they do.
I think that this is a very complex
Mm.
It is.
and big deal,
Yeah, I don't think that's.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
yes.
page 263. The next one.
An act relating, that's to disconnect from work.
Nope.
I think that's a
Is that,
fairly positive one.
yeah,
That's
that's
Right, I like
is that
that.
about media?
You can't be contacted by your job 24 hours. a day.
I do appreciate that one. And then there was one I know I heard at work, our Working Vermonters caucus that Monique had as well about something about sitting.
Yeah.
Electronic
Sit.
monitoring, electronic monitoring.
Yeah.
Is there an electronic?
Those are three right in a row.
Yeah.
There's a right in a row.
Okay, it's so 261 and 261 I'm hearing is a heavy
Yeah,
lift, really
right.
heavy lift. 262,
I think also is,
is
If you read through. it.
electronic monitoring, employee-related automated decision system, so that's interesting.
And would that have to go to digital?
I think it probably
Yeah.
should if it were
Well,
to.
it's about labor though, no? Oh, but yeah.
Do both.
They
Yeah,
have-
it's true, yeah.
I'm just stuck on 261 and I'm
The
just looking,
32-hour work week?
yeah, and I'm just looking through it and looking at the bill, it doesn't, I mean, I guess logistically, I mean, I suppose it would be a heavy lift, but I don't know, maybe, okay, maybe not. I don't know. I'm just looking through it. It's 4 pages.
Oh, just zipper.
It's sick
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
I want to clarify that no matter what is said, I don't see this as a final determination. I just wanted us to all.
I'm gonna
have a
type
second.
up the notes and send it
Yeah,
to everyone about what we're.
So I would like to put a pin in
Okay.
261.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
I mean, are we planning to get through this whole?
Well, I was
I
about
just
to ask
told him it was
everybody.
for almost lunch.
I want to ask people, actually, we made a lot of progress, but I think if we were to get all the way through the list, we wouldn't have one. So what do people want? Should we just go for a few more minutes and then stop and we'll revisit the list?
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, 262 is, 263 is the disconnect, and I'm just gonna speed a little. I'm hearing a sort of positive interest in that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, and we, again, may be able to add it to things.
Yeah, and then an act relating to the state labor relating to payment of vacation leave upon separation.
Uh-huh.
Well, the two different ones there.
Oh,
State Employees Labor Relations Act,
290 is the Labor Relations Act.
which is,
It says your name.
yeah, and I don't-
You're silent and I was like, what's going on?
It's fine.
290,
Yeah, 290.
290 is,
Is this
Attorney
live?
General to organize.
Oh, that's, sorry, they changed the name, you're right, they changed the name this year, I'm not that checked out. That's the AAG one. So
oh,
again,
that- 290 is the.
I'm
AAG.
checking, they changed the name this year, I'm gonna check in with the Senate still on
Okay,
that one.
okay. And then 295 is an act relating to separation.
Mhm.
Is that because not all employers will let you accrue vacation and then pay you if you leave?
well, I just don't think if you leave in the middle of the year, I don't think they're gonna pay you for the years.
No.
Not the whole.
Yeah, usually you have to
No,
get
but bills-
years to get
Didn't take any
vacation.
vacation.
Let's see.
That was very confusing to me.
I think that's gonna be company policy. Like when you
Well, you would know it. up
sign on
front.
to a job,
HR expert.
I should, the
That's
company
fine.
could make that decision whether you could save up.
Okay, I'm gonna put a question mark as kind of like
Question.
real question mark on that.
Okay,
Okay.
Ashley could probably
You know,
help.
and also we can get Sophie in here we could get Sophie in here and ask her. She offered, by the way, to meet with us and just
It's just-
answer questions about any labor bill.
Yeah.
Real quick, so we can do that if you want, okay. An act, and you know another thing? I will try to get together with Sophie, and if you want to be involved, or Ashley, and or both of us, and just this coming week, I'm around, crazy as it is, and just ask questions about these labor bills, just as additional information, so that when we reconvene, we have time, we can, I can, or she'll be here, we can get her here. I mean, she knows this stuff, really knows it well. Okay, so that was vacation leave and an act relating, just,
I've just got an answer going back just to 295.
yeah,
That is about employers paying out unused accrued
Yeah.
vacation. leave.
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, I
Specific.
see.
With
Yes.
with your last payment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever is OT,
Right, so
adding
with
the
the
vac-
OT.
accrued
Yeah,
vacation.
Yeah.
I'm positive about that. The reason I say it is I think we all assume it because many employment contracts provide it,
But they don't.
They
but they don't always do it,
No.
yeah. Right.
Right.
All right, put a pin in that.
I think,
Well, I have a question. If it's employee policy or if it's in a contract, Does it have anything to do with legislation?
Well, the issue, that's exactly the issue you'd have to decide. There are all kinds of labor issues which are up to the employer-employee to negotiate.
Right.
And there are ones where the state says,
You have to.
you have to do this or you have to do that. And which bucket does this fall into?
Okay,
Right now, and if apparently, I don't know, we'd have to make sure. Apparently it falls into the private bucket.
mhm.
The question is, would we want to put it in the public bucket or not? That's the policy issue. I think we're gonna stop there. We're gonna reconvene at 1 o'clock.
I'm sorry.
At 1 o'clock, it's 12, after 12.
I've,
So at one, ladies and gentlemen,
Yes.
at 1 o'clock, we're gonna hear from Ellen. At 2 o'clock, we're gonna hear from Cameron. He might be a little delayed. He's had to spend the whole morning in our analog.
I saw him down there when I was going
He's in the
outside.
Senate Committee of Housing and Commons. He can get it done in time, he'll be here at 2. When we are through with the walkthrough, we should have a complete bill. Or a bill that is complete enough that it, just a little language here or there, that we know what it is and it's just subject to final. I'm really hoping that we can move to a straw vote on the whole bill. What a straw vote means is that you're not committing yourself. It is not like a vote. We will not call the roll. We'll raise our hands. It gives us, everybody, a sense of where are we? You know, they're very useful, but, and you have to understand, ultimately, like, let's say you like the bill. But you're not 1,000%. You can vote yes on a straw. And then on further study, when it comes time for the vote or to discussion on the vote, you can say, can't do it. Unless, okay? So that's where I really would like to get to a straw vote today and get out of here in a reasonable time.